Hello again, Broncos country, and welcome to another edition of the Orange Weekly pregame podcast. We are taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had a terrible showing against the Houston Texans, and we are about to roll in 1-0 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're so excited about this game, and we are about to break it down just for you. Also, if you guys haven't heard, we have announced that we are officially part of the Pigskin Podcast Network, so make sure you are following them on all of your social media sites. We are so excited to break down this game and be excited about the partnership that we have with the Pigskin Podcast Network. Hopefully you guys enjoy, sit back, relax, and enjoy another edition of the pregame podcast.
Orange Weekly, fans, brews, and Broncos news.
All right, here we are, David.
Man, good to be back with you, Jared. Thanks for. I missed you last week. I'm glad you're able to come back this week. It's not.
You know what? I'm glad I'm back too. But you know what? We're missing Matt, and I do. We need to get the trio back. We need to get the band back together eventually, and I think it will happen here in the next couple weeks.
It will. Yeah, we'll get the trio, the three of us. It's not the same without the three of us ever. Kevin, the post-game podcast host, who I will no longer name, but helped us fill in for you last week. Couldn't fill your shoes. Glad to have you back. But like you said, it would be nice to have all three of us here, and hopefully we'll get that together for you guys real soon.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. But hey, look, we're 1-0. And if you go back and listen to the post-game podcast, they talk about a lot of what we saw in the post-game, what we saw against the New York Giants, and there's a lot to be excited about, David.
Yeah, absolutely. The offense just looking something other than futile was a start, but actually going from just not futile to actually, then serviceable to might be good this year is, really, really intriguing. Obviously, the injury to Jerry Jeudy maybe takes away some of the excitement there, but if Teddy Bridgewater develops the level of chemistry with these other receivers that he had with Jeudy, and it was obvious, all through the preseason, during the game before Jeudy got injured, if he develops that with the other receivers, and I don't think they're really that far off, it could be a really special season for Broncos country. Something I think that, maybe even surpasses what we thought the ceiling for the team was when we started.
And not for nothing, Teddy Bridgewater was a 95.7 Pro Football star, top of the league in week 1, which is absolutely amazing. And not only that, but we hung 7 on the board. We left 7 on the board with the Okawabanam fumble. He made up for it on that 4th and 1, which is amazing. And if you guys want to hear more about that, go check out the post-game podcast. But hey, we're here to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars and what we expect from the Denver Broncos against Jacksonville Jaguars. Is it more or less of what we kind of saw against the New York Giants?
I would say more. Just in that, and let's start the matchup on the offensive side of the ball this week for the Broncos. Our offense, I think, matches up against their defense very, very well. The Giants defense was able to play us close for most of that game because they've got really, really good players up front. Our interior offensive line, I don't want to say got manhandled at times, but it wasn't their best game as a group. And I don't think that you've got the same kind of names going forward against Jacksonville that you had to worry about against the Giants. You've got Malcolm Brown and Roy Robertson Harris as the two starting defensive ends. Taven Bryan, their first round pick from a couple of years ago, not even a starter for them at the moment. Nose tackle, and they do play a 3-4 base, Devon Hamilton. It's a far cry from the days when Calais Campbell was helping to rush the passer, and Malik Jackson was down there, and there was all kinds of havoc on that defensive line. They really started over at every position there this offseason, and I don't think the Broncos are going to have any difficulty up front, Jared. What about you? Do you think the offensive line gets going a little bit more this game, and especially helps out with the run game a little more.
Well, absolutely, and I think the interior defensive line is really going to be where New York Giants, I still believe to this day, whether you look at the stats or not, the interior defensive line New York Giants is still one of the top 5 in the league, and I think you kind of saw it a little bit against us. You saw some of our interior, Cushenberry kind of had a little bit of a rough game. And there were some times that you saw the interior get some pressure. We're not going to see an interior defensive line like that. I don't think for the rest of the season, really. And I think that this is the game that we're really going to bounce back. I think you're going to see a lot of run game. I expect Williams to have a big game with Gordon. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of intrigued the fact that they split the carries between Gordon and Williams pretty evenly.
Yeah.
Right. And I was expecting Gordon to get the fair share and maybe like 80-20, maybe 70-30, but there was really, really a 50-50 split on the carries. And that just shows how much this coaching staff believes in our rookie running back to be able to carry that load and put in whoever it is, no matter who it is in the backfield, to be able to run that play, which I think is super exciting. But I expect a much bigger running game. Outside of the 70-yard touchdown that Melvin Gordon had, we were really kind of stagnant in the run game, and we kind of had to rely on our pass game in that game.
Yeah, you're right. But I also do expect the run game to take off a little bit. I think you saw, even though they were stymied a little bit, I think you saw Javonte Williams' ability to keep the ball rolling after initial contact. I think you saw Melvin Gordon doing his thing to kind of just grind away at a defense and then eventually spring a big one. They were able to contribute against the Giants. I think they're going to be able to do more than contribute against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're going to be able to dictate the terms at the line of scrimmage. I think they're going to be able to kind of do what they want a little bit up front, and it's going to help them do everything, run game included. I think, I don't want to say we'll see more balance, because they really did try to call a balanced game between run and pass against the Giants, but I do think you'll see a little bit more effectiveness with that balance this upcoming week. What do you think? Who do you think the matchups are in the secondary versus our offense? As we talked about, Jerry Jeudy not going to be playing, going to be sidelined for 4 to 6 weeks with this high ankle sprain. I think I speak for everybody, obviously, who saw the injury live and in saying, man, that's lucky, because it looked like he had no ankle left. It looked like one of those injuries where his foot was just facing a way that it shouldn't face. And so, yeah, it's a testament to, I guess, how springy his joints are that it ended up being a sprain and not a break or total annihilation. But yeah, he'll be on the sideline for a while. What do you think against this secondary we'll expect? Well, are there any matchups that you like? Any players that concern you for Jacksonville?
Yeah, so I'll say this on the Bourbon Broncos No BS show on Tuesday night on our Instagram and Twitter. I'd mentioned that the Jacksonville secondary is scary, and I might be living in the past a little bit here, David. I don't think that they're as scary as they once were, right? Like they're middle linebackers, their linebacker core has some people, but Shaquille Griffin, who was the story going into Seattle, not so much to cut it out of Seattle. And the opposite, you had CJ Henderson, who's I'm not going to say a terrible corner, right? He has his ability,
but
yeah, and then but he doesn't make the plays.
Yeah, he doesn't really want to be there either.
And now you're talking depth. Is Tyson Campbell, who is a rookie out of Georgia, selected in the second round, not doing great against the Houston Texans and Tyrod Taylor, not doing great so far. You're talking about our wide receiver core, Sutton, Patrick, and Hamler as our top 3. I do not think that there's a way that this cornerback, this defensive back core, with the safeties of Rashawn Jenkins and Andrew Wingard, who I feel like they're kind of no names, right? And they're expected to come up in the Urban Meyer defense. I do believe that we have such an advantage with our wide and we mentioned this on the Ragers podcast, and I hate to do the plug, right? Make sure you go follow Ragers because we're 4-0 right now. But we mentioned this on the Ragers podcast, this exact thing. Like, there's not many defensive backs. There's not very many core defensive backs that's going to match up against our wide receivers. There's just not. Yeah. Now, it's whether or not Teddy Bridgewater can deliver what he did against the New York Giants week after week. That's a different question. But there's not a lot of defensive backs that can keep up with Tim Patrick, Courtland Sutton, and Hamler. And, not to mention, we're missing our number 2/number 1, Jerry Jeudy, who could break anything. Without him, we still have one of the best receiving cores
in the league. Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm looking at what the Houston receiving core did to this Jacksonville secondary. You've got Brandon Cooks, 5 catches for 132 yards. You've got Pharaoh Brown, 4 for 67. You've got Danny Amendola, who, if you told me he was retired, I'd be like, yeah, fucking duh.
Yeah, it sounds
Danny
right.
Amendola's been retired for like 2 or 3 years. What are you talking about? No, Danny Amendola had 5 catches for 34 yards and a touchdown. If I had to make a bold prediction for this game, it would be that KJ Hamler wipes out the complaints from that Giants game, because I think Hamler's going to have some opportunities deep, and I think he's going to catch them this time. He's going to get behind the defense 3 times, I think, and there's going to be some opportunities to make him pay deep. They've got, edge rushers. They've got Kayvon Chason, their first round pick from last year. Josh Allen, that's I think maybe if there's a quote unquote strength of this defense, I think it's maybe those guys. But I don't know. When Josh Allen was drafted, it was to be a 4-3 defensive end. Now he's playing outside linebacker in a 3-4. Kayvon Chason, that's his more natural position, I think, is 3-4 outside linebacker. I just, is Joe Cullen, their first-year defensive coordinator, is he going to bring these disparate pieces together? He comes over from the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know if there's any stats about what kind of coverages they played last week against the Texans, but if he brings that school of thought over from Baltimore, they're going to play a lot of cover zero. It's going to be a lot of man coverage with no help on the back end. And that, to me, again, I was just talking about KJ Hamler. Big time opportunities seem like they're going to be there for him.
Absolutely. And we all saw it, right? We all saw the big drop. But David, as you mentioned on the show, there's no, right after that play, I feel like it was in the next drive, he catches a huge 3rd down catch over the middle, jumping out of the air to catch the ball. Like, that was a focus catch that's going to happen, right? Yeah. And we're going to get there. The fact that we still were able to drop that and win the way we did says something about our team. But there's something too to be said that maybe our turnovers, right? We were driving the ball and our scheme was there and that the delivery was there. The turnovers probably could be a little better.
Absolutely. You can't have those in the red zone, especially. And Alberto, again, made up for it later in the game, but it's the kind of thing you never want to have as an offense, and the kind of thing that has happened in the past. And, like we were saying a little earlier on the Bourbon Broncos No BS show, could have been the kind of thing that derailed a game. Could have been the kind of thing that added to this other thing, that added to another thing, with a 15-yard penalty on the next drive. And then suddenly you're down 2 scores. Right. It could have snowballed out of control very easily for us. But instead, the team responded by going touchdown to end the first half, touchdown to begin the second half, with a huge long drive to begin that second half too. We ate up. I looked at the 3rd quarter clock when the Giants had their possession for the first time, and I had to double check. Is this their first possession of the half? There's 6 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. It was pretty ridiculous. So if the Broncos can maintain that against, again, and we're talking about on paper, but what looks like a lesser defense, their chances of winning this game just skyrocket exponentially.
Well, and it's crazy because I feel like this is what the Broncos' plan has been all along. The intention is to drive the ball, get the first down, move on to the next game, right? Move on to the next play. Get the drive, get the first down, move on to the next play, which is why I feel like you saw us going forward on fourth down. We were 3 for 3 on fourth down, which is amazing. One of them was on the 2-yard line. That's the Okawebanam touchdown.
Yeah.
But there was one on the 50-yard line that I remember being at the halftime hash and being like, that was the ballsiest call I think I've seen. and we're talking. I was here for the Shanahan offense, which made some ballsy ass calls. 50-yard line, that was the ballsy ass call.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that we made that. And not only that, but delivered. And
anybody who doesn't think that Vic Fangio doesn't know the stakes, if you think Vic Fangio doesn't know the stakes for what's at stake for him personally this year, this September, this month, you're crazy. He knows exactly what's going on. And I think I said this in the last pregame podcast. He's not, I don't think, a coach that wants to be conservative on offense. I don't think he's ever been that guy. I think we've seen it with Drew Lock at quarterback too. He wants to take shots down the field. He wants to be aggressive. He knows as a defensive coach that the most effective thing an offense can do is hit those deep shots, is prove to your defense that you can cover and scheme as much as you want to, but our guy can still beat your guy when it comes down to making the play 30 yards down the field. And there's nothing that hurts a defense more. So I think he wants to do that. He wants to be that guy who goes for it on fourth down to show those aggressive instincts. And now he thinks he has a team that can carry it for him.
Well, and now you're talking about a defensive coordinator for however many years coming into as a head coach. And he realizes not only that, but he realizes his defense needs rest. You can't go 3 and out. And I think that's what we saw last year. We saw it last year. You go 3 and out and our defense just cannot hold on. Like they cannot be on the field for 80% of the plays. And his calls for going on fourth down, obviously it worked out for us 3 for 3. It might be a different story if we're sitting here, if you went 1 for 3, it might be a different story and we might be having a different podcast, but it didn't. And entirely that rests on Teddy Bridgewater. And I think Teddy Bridgewater really showed up to be able to make those plays that Coach Fangio wanted to make.
And so what I think we need to talk about specifically with Steady Teddy is that nickname Steady Teddy. I think it needs to now refer specifically to a confidence, a coolness under pressure that comes out in game situations as well as, in interviews and whatnot. And it needs to not refer to a guy who plays it safe, who is always just looking for a check down, because I think he completed half his passes to tight ends or wide receivers, but between 10 and 19 yards, that area of the field, targeting that area of the field this week, he was 7 of 7 for like 115 yards and a touchdown. So I don't want to hear this. Teddy won't stretch the ball down the field. He's only looking to check it down. Teddy Bridgewater wants to be as aggressive, I think, as Vic Fangio does. And they are looking to choose their spots. They're looking to do it carefully. But this is an offense that is going to do that kind of shot play more often than people think this year.
Yeah, and I'll look at the box score on this, but I'm 90% sure there's only like three passes to running backs.
Yeah.
There was only 3 passes to outs. Like his entire goal was to get to tight ends and wide receivers. Downfield, Noah Fant, killer game, right? Jerry Jeudy. And the other thing that I want to say about this, and this isn't the post-game podcast, so I'm sorry that we're going into this, but like it's exciting. The other thing is he just spread the ball around. Yeah. Like, it did not matter who it was, like very reminiscent of some of your top quarterbacks, right? Like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and not to completely put him in the same category, but he is spreading the ball around to the open receiver. It didn't matter who it was. Our backup tight end got a touchdown. Our backup tight end got 5 or 6 targets. Noah Fant got 4 or 5. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, they all were getting their looks based on the scheme, based on what he was looking at. And that's what I love. That's what I love to see.
Well, and I think to apply it to this next game, it is going to show up against the Jaguars because I think multiple targets are going to be open at different points in the game. He's going to be able to feed different receivers. I think that Noah Fant's run after catch potential is going to be very, very good for this game. But, Tim Patrick is going to have opportunities. KJ Hamler's going to have opportunities. Cortland Sutton may come alive during this game. I think I'm excited to watch this offense perform. Legitimately excited to watch this offense, what this offense can do.
Well, you're telling me right now that our top tight end right now is our second tight end. Alberto has more touchdowns, obviously, but less yards. But Noah Fant has more yards. And you're talking about any one of these guys can break it off. They do not have the personnel. Jacksonville Jaguars do not have the personnel to cover every single one of our receivers.
Loki could be the Eric Saubert revenge game, cut by Jacksonville and his spot given to Tim Tebow, who was a publicity signing from start to finish, and it was painfully obvious from his preseason footage. He didn't belong out there, and Eric Saubert made a 53-man roster on what is a really talented 53-man roster too. Jacksonville needing tight end help. Maybe Saubert gets some opportunities, some special looks in the end zone or in the red zone from Pat Shurmur there. But yeah, it's I think it's going to be real interesting.
And to beat the media on this, Saubert was brought on as a blocking tight end.
That's right.
He was not brought on as a guy to go out and he still is getting the targets.
Yeah.
Right. I just don't know how to explain it, but Teddy Bridgewater knows how to feel it. And I think against a Jacksonville Jaguars defense who has maybe one or two guys that can play in coverage, I think he's going to be able to find those empty spots.
I think it's the experience that we were sold with Joe Flacco that was never going to be a thing is actually maybe possible with Teddy Bridgewater this season. It's going to be real fun.
Yeah.
All right, let's flip it. I think we've exhausted all the options here.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the defense against this Jacksonville offense. Obviously, big name, Trevor Lawrence, first overall pick, consensus first overall pick, the most consensus first overall pick since Andrew Luck.
He's been the first overall for like 2.5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Never wavered for a second, really. You've got James Robinson, who is on my fantasy team, and I maybe have to figure out something else. Yeah, I think Melvin Gordon's going to move into that spot, and I'm going to have to figure out. Maybe I'll play two tight ends this week. Maybe Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce will do something for me this week at the same time. Anyway, back to this game. We've got DJ Chark at wide receiver, super talented guy, has really come on and established himself as one of the better players in this league over the past couple of years. One of those guys who, like Allen Robinson in Jacksonville, these receivers just develop there despite the quarterback play, despite the coaching turnover. They just seem to blossom there. So maybe he pulls an Allen Robinson and gets a second chance somewhere else to compete. Don't pick the Bears. You've got Marvin Jones, and then old Colorado Buff alum, not old Colorado Buff, he was just drafted last year, second-year player Laviska Shenault, who does a little bit of everything for that offense. He's kind of their X factor. What do you see in their playmakers, Jared? Who do you see as a potential problem for the Broncos defense?
Well, I do like Laviska Shenault. And maybe that's the orange and blue goggles in me, but he is the wide receiver that is, I feel like, completely underrated, not targeted enough. Him and DJ Chark, man. Like, look, this receiving core of the Jacksonville Jaguars, I feel like is probably one of the best that they've had in a long time. But I just don't feel like Trevor Lawrence is the guy to be able to get them the ball right now. Right? He's still young in the league. He's still doing rookie things and throwing. I think he threw 3 picks last week against the Houston Texans. And and the other thing too is Coach Fangio is one of the best against rookie quarterbacks because he understands what he needs to do to be able to get either pressure or to be able to make sure he throws the mistakes. He makes those mistakes. So I think Coach Fangio against a rookie quarterback in week 2 and Trevor Lawrence, I love this matchup. I am afraid. I would not gonna lie. If Aaron Rodgers was a quarterback of these wide receivers, I would be so worried about our defensive backs. And that's saying a lot because we have a very, very good secondary on our team.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with Trevor Lawrence back there, I'm not as afraid as I would be if there was somebody established like a Tom Brady or Andrew Luck or even a Josh Allen as shitty as he played last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk about it in a little bit. We're a little bit thin in the secondary there, but I think you're absolutely right. I think that this group of playmakers with a guy more experienced would pose a problem to a defense that's still pretty good, but it's just not, I don't think, going to be a terribly strenuous game. See, I'm luring myself into a trap here. I can't.
I literally am watching the thought process of you getting lured into the trap.
No, and I can't. And in the 11 a.m. time zone in Jacksonville, Florida, in the third week of September, anything can happen. Anything can happen to your team. You can, half your offensive line can dehydrate by the third quarter, and then what do you do? So I don't want to count anything out. I don't want to, the Jaguars players all get paid to do it too. More than anything for me, the doubt comes not from the roster with the Jaguars, but from the coaching. I don't believe in the Urban Meyer experience. You're already hearing about how bad the established NFL guys there are clashing with the guys that Meyer has brought in from college. The players aren't on board. The cracks are starting. He's not available to Broncos media this week, and if you're following that on Broncos Twitter, it's a whole saga. But whoever's to blame for it, he's not going to be available to Denver media this week. It's just kind of a nightmare start to their season already, in a season where they really wanted to project confidence, and I think it's probably because it's not working with the coach. Back to the offense versus the defense of Denver here. Are there any players that you especially are looking at? I'm highlighting Patrick Surtain, of course, because he's going to be starting at outside corner with Ronald Darby going on the injured reserve with that hamstring injury. Anybody else that you're really focusing on as a matchup that you like for Denver?
Yeah, I mean, obviously our middle linebackers, two guys that, and I'm telling you right now, if you haven't been following us this whole time, I've been on we need a middle linebacker that's going to be the leader for years. I'm talking 3 to 4 years. I've been asking for a middle linebacker, but guess what? Johnson. Let's just say decades. Well, maybe not that long. But look, Johnson and Jewell had such an amazing game this last week. I really do think that they're going to be able to stop the run game. I think one of the things that the Jacksonville Jaguars, after watching their game, is going to try to do is establish the run game, because they have such a good running back in James Robinson that they're going to try to establish the running game back. And I do not think it's going to happen against our defensive front. Yeah, obviously Patrick Surtain, right? Everyone's looking out for him. Everyone's waiting for him. And we really want to see him step up. Right. We still have Bryce Callahan that we can throw in there. And I'm not sure what Coach Fangio is going to do. I don't think they throw Bryce Callahan back out at the outside when they know that he's probably better on the inside. And I'm not going to see, I would not be surprised to see more nickel packages this week than our base 3-4. Just because of that, because just based on the numbers, based on the athletic ability of the guys that we have, I think Callahan being in the game is better than him not being in the game. Surtain is going to be outside on either Chark or Jones. I want to see what Surtain could do, because I do feel like he could be that guy, and I think this is his test.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think he's going to do well. I think that he maybe got caught a little bit out of position on one play, and that's what we're maybe focusing on a little bit too much. I don't think
100%.
Yeah, and so I think we're going to see. I predicted the interception from him last week and didn't get it. I'm going to double down on that prediction this week. I think this is the week he gets his first one. I promise I will not just keep predicting it until he actually gets one this year. But
happens next week.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, if it doesn't happen by the Jets game, like, what are we even doing here? No, I think, though, in all seriousness, I think he's really going to show that 9th overall pick status. Yeah, he's going to have a great game. But, to your point about the middle linebackers, Josie Jewell, again, picked up right where he left off last season, having a great game. I still think of him as a guy who's probably not going to get re-signed by the Broncos in a contract year. But if he keeps putting this tape out there. He's going to get money from somebody. Somebody's going to pony it up.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I said it last year, probably about midway through. This is the most underrated inside linebacker core that I've ever seen. And it's because they're just not talked about and because our team wasn't doing well. Wait till we're 4-0. And wait till our defense is again top 4 and we're 4-0. And then they're going to start talking like, oh shit, Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell? Like, who the hell?
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, they don't do anything, I think, at an elite level. And I think it's more a kind of a design of the Fangio system that you don't ask your linebackers to do things that way. There's a little bit more, pressure on the pass rushers, more spotlight on the pass rushers, and the secondary as well. The safety is in the corners. But yeah, it's just not. Yeah, it's not quite what they're asked to do in this. Go ahead, Jared.
This Fangio defense is do your job, and I fucking love it. I love every second of it. You do your job. You fill your hole on a run, and you cover your space on the pass.
Yeah,
like you cover hook curl, and then you fill A gap or you fill B gap. Like those are your jobs, and these guys do it exceptionally. And you've seen Josie Jewell shoot through B gap and make a 2-yard loss tackle
for loss. Absolutely. Yeah.
On Saquon Barkley. Like I think we're forgetting that he's making a 2-yard loss tackle by shooting B gap on something he's not supposed to come in on a blitz for, but just read. He reads it, shoots it, 2-yard loss on a Saquon Barkley. You do not get that with many other linebackers. You're right. I don't know if he stays. I don't think a lot of people are seeing it. Maybe, I mean, obviously the coaching staff is seeing it because as many times as I've been screaming from the top of the hilltops, get a middle linebacker. They like these guys, and I think this is why we saw it against these guys, against the New York Giants, and that's where it's at. I like these middle linebackers. I think they're underrated. I do not think they're going to be underrated halfway through the season. I'll tell you that right now.
Absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about the secondary. We've talked a little bit about.
I want to mention one more thing about the secondary.
Yeah.
Somebody that we have not mentioned, and I feel like needs a second chance is Michael Ojemudia.
I think he's still on the injured reserve. I'm pretty sure he's still on IR with that knee injury.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't think he's going to be available. I think actually, yeah, he's going to be out for longer than. Darby will be back.
That is super unfortunate.
Yeah.
And here's why. And I'm going to explain it why. I'll make the mistake. I liked him last year. He made a lot of mistakes. He came in there as I think it was like a 4th or 5th round pick. He came in there and he ended up being, I think for like 3 or 4 games straight, the number 1 corner on our team.
Right.
As a rookie. Because I feel like at one game he got injured and we had literally no rookies or no corners, no defensive backs on our team, which I think was the most ridiculous. We had no quarterbacks one game, we had no corners another. It was absolutely most ridiculous last year. But
right. And
I do think I want to see him come back.
Yeah, me too. His timeline was 4 to 6 weeks at the end of August. So I would say right around the same time Darby's coming back, we'll probably get Ojemudia back too. But he is. I think you're right. A young guy who kind of took his lumps. I mean, Julio Jones made him look bad, but who hasn't Julio Jones made look bad? A guy who I think would benefit a little bit more from more reps too. And just it's a shame that he's not able to take this opportunity to get on the field a little bit, but that's the way that goes. Now, I think, and I'm going to shout out one player we haven't talked about at all, Kareem Jackson, who was just his old self against the Giants. Really, run support, shooting gaps, everything we've expected from him. So good to have him back. It was, not looking like maybe he was going to be a Bronco this year, and it worked out that he was able to come back. Just super glad to have him a leader in that secondary, a team captain this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, you rewind 5 months, and we're all talking about whether or not he was going to be here and who we were going to get to replace him. Are we going to pick somebody up in the draft? What's our plan? We re-sign him, which I thought was the most amazing thing that we could have done. We're really excited here at Orange Weekly about re-signing him, and I think the team is too. He's back for 1 year. Obviously, he's getting up there in age, but you cannot tell. You can't tell that.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's talk kind of the final matchup on the defense, our guys up front versus their offensive line. You've got, let's see, Cam Robinson at left tackle, Andrew Norwell left guard, Brandon Linder starting at center, AJ Can at right guard, and Jawan Taylor at right tackle. It's, kind of a similar situation, I think, as far as the Giants go, in that it's not one of the better offensive lines in the league. And I think there's matchups everywhere that you can exploit. Shelby Harris, Draymond Jones, Von Miller. We're not entirely sure what Bradley Chubb's injury status as of this recording is. That'll bear watching. But even if he isn't available to go, the pass rush was able to get there against New York, and I would expect that to continue. I would expect them to be able to stifle the Jaguars' run game pretty effectively. They're just, I think, going to be able to win these matchups more often than not one-on-one.
I can't agree with you more. Obviously, look, our defense can't be stopped. And that's really all. I can't
Jared.
explain it more.
Jared,
look,
you're falling into the trap. I almost fell into it earlier.
I'm falling in a trap. You're right. I'm there. Look, Malik Reed, Jonathan Taylor. You cannot. There is nobody that we put out on the outside linebacker position that you can't stop. Look, Von Miller, and I've said this over and over again, and I'm not going to lie. I went into the last game a little bit skeptical about how Von Miller was going to come back. Like just in general, being realistic, right? Trying to find out what is Von Miller going to do on his time back after the injury, after being a whole season off, also being 32 years old. Like, there's a lot of questions about him. But I was watching on defense. I found myself watching just him. I just wanted to see what he was going to do. And literally every time, not only did he do his job, but he did it so well that plays were made. And you can't stop that. You can't stop that. You literally have to run to the opposite side. And now what's the opposite side?
Yeah.
We even without Bradley Chubb, you have Malik Reed or Jonathan Taylor out there. There's no way you can run away from him. There's no way you can run to him. What are you going to do as an offense?
He showed everything that Von Miller shows. He showed all the pass rush that you ever want to see, all the moves, power rush, speed rush. He showed that ridiculous anticipation of the snap count. He also showed that thing that he does in the run game that I love so much, where he's just in the backfield after the snap, and you think, okay, maybe this is one of those zone runs where they leave a guy unblocked and, there's an offensive lineman in the second level. But it's not.
Oh,
the running back is just kind of like standing there because he's like, that was my hole, and Von Miller's standing there. And then it's a tackle for a 2-yard loss. It's my favorite thing that I see him do in the run game, and that was back to it's Von's Von. And I like you, had maybe a little bit of nervousness just to see if he could really bring it back, and those questions have been answered and then some.
Yeah, but going back to the defensive line, I like this interior versus their interior. I think Mike Purcell and Draymond Jones are going to be able to get the pressure from the interior side. And if specifically if they're trying to focus on Von, seeing how he's back, like there's no questioning he's back to his old self. If they try to focus on Von, those interior defensive linemen are going to have a heyday against this interior of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is not. I don't think he's going to be able to read the blitz well. He didn't against Houston, and that was something that was big against him. He did not read the blitz well. He did not communicate with his offensive line about reading the blitz well. And I think Coach Fangio is going to see that.
We're going to see some defensive back blitzes. We're going to see some A-gap blitzes from the linebackers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're gonna see them do as much as they can to rattle Trevor Lawrence.
Yep, and I think it's going to work. And I think this is where it's going to come down to. He's going to make some off balance throws, and our secondary is going to be there, and there's no question about that. Man, I'm falling into the trap. It's the more and more I talk about the game, the more and more I'm like, oh man, this is easy. But
Jacksonville is a toxic swamp, and it will swallow all of your hopes and dreams. And Broncos country should be aware of that as they go into this game. I cannot stress that enough. Now, as we go from that thought into our score predictions, Jared, let's start with you. What do you think? Score prediction. Let's go.
I don't want to be that cocky guy, but I do feel like 28-10 is a decent score prediction. I'm a little bit concerned about our turnovers on offense. Teddy Bridgewater is not my concern anymore. I don't think he's the guy that I'm worried about making turnovers. I'm worried about the fumbles. I'm worried about the fourth downs. But I'm not worried about Teddy Bridgewater. So I do think 28-10 is an accurate score. We hold them. They make probably a crazy play late in the game. I feel like we control this game the whole way.
I'll tell you, I'm with you on those third downs into fourth downs because you can't go 100% on fourth down every game. You're not going to go 3 for 3 with a touchdown on fourth down every week. That's just not a recipe for success. So let's convert a few more of those third downs and stop them from becoming fourth downs. Other than that, I can't say that I disagree with you too much. I'm going to dust off my own shoulder here. Nobody saw that because we're on audio podcast, but
I saw it, David. It's okay.
Thank you. With the 31-14 score prediction from last week, I came the closest, I believe, of anybody at the Orange Weekly crew. And I'm gonna stick with that offensive total for the Broncos. I think they break the 30 marker. I think the Jaguars and you said, and my same reasoning as last week, you said the score that I was going to say for Jacksonville, which was 10. So I'll bump it up to 13. 31-13 Broncos. It will be our score this week.
I mean, I like it. At that point, like, you have confidence. Look, last year,
yeah,
David, fast forward, close your eyes, fast forward, rewind to last year.
Wait,
think about it. Think about it.
Rewinding because my brain.
We're rewinding. Can you just okay?
You said like 4 things in the span of like 8 seconds.
I'm just asking you to rewind. Just for a second. I need you to rewind. Close your eyes. Rewind to this time last year. Would you ever expect us to be predicting over 28 points? Either one of us ever, on any game against any defense?
Sure. But only because you and I do these shows in various states of intoxication. Not seriously. Like, I would never expect us to actually go out there and hang 30 on any team reliably, even a bad team. But that's, we've already gotten, and maybe we're a little bit too confident in this offense. But man, we've got a 1-game sample size, and it was a really good game. So yeah, there's no reason to think they won't continue that performance against a worse defense.
Well, it's not just that. The preseason, everything put together. I was surprised to see coming out of the preseason to see a team actually driving the ball, and maybe that just be us watching Denver Broncos football for the last 4 years,
yeah, and
not seeing an offensive drive going all the way down and scoring in 4 years. So we're excited.
Yeah,
and I think that's the most important part, and I think you should be too.
I
think everybody, all of us, like the listener, the fan base, the team, the Orange Weeklyans. That's not we gotta figure out it.
We're workshopping it.
Yeah, we're workshopping the listener thing. But look, if you guys are excited about these Broncos, just know that we are too. And it's not a blind bias. It's not a Joe Flacco's here. He's going to save our career because
that year it was blind bias. I admit it.
No,
it was blind bias.
I know you should. Year. You should.
But this year, legitimate.
Yeah. No, this is it. And I'm not saying our faith is in Teddy. I'm not. I don't think he's going to be able to put up another 95.7 quarterback rating.
Probably that's the last time he gets that level for the year. I agree.
Yeah, and he might put up one more, but I don't expect that to be the regular. I expect an Aaron Rodgers showing every once in a while where he throws the ball on the ground a couple times, but I do think that this between the defense and the offense and the excitement around the Denver Broncos, we are here to stay, and we are here to make the playoffs. And you can tell it in the Coach Fangio, the calls. He knows what's riding on this. Teddy Bridgewater knows what's riding on the season. Von Miller knows what's riding on the season. There's a lot of excitement around the Denver Broncos. For us, national media might hold us down, and I'm actually okay with that. I want the national media to forget about us for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Because once we start making national, these national broadcasts, we'll see what happens. But I'm excited for this team, dude.
Yeah, me too. Legitimate excitement. I think we are both on the same page there. Any final thoughts? Any closing things before we wrap this one up, buddy?
If we lose this Jacksonville game, do I need to make that like a declaring statement? Like, I will take my shirt off. I'll be shirtless for the next Orange Weekly episode, the Bourbon Broncos No BS episode.
No, because I think everybody will be so eager to move on from the Jacksonville game that we don't need to see you do anything if they lose the Jacksonville game. Let's just start talking about the Jets game and forget that there is a place called Jacksonville, a terrible, terrible place, to which people should not go, and to which we hope, or from which we hope our team escapes with a win, but also their lives.
Look, I don't think we should lose this game.
Yeah.
And listen in as Saturday comes around. Please listen to the Ragers podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to the Ragers podcast because we went 4-0 last week. Big time 4-0. We're starting off the season hot, and it's because we know the Denver Broncos. We know football, and we're going to be able to get you the bets that we see. And we're not going to win them all, but 4-0 is a great start. So make sure you're tuning in the Ragers podcast because we're going to talk about a lot of these matchups there on whether or not we should go over and under on some of these.
Yeah.
Ultimately, there's no way we should lose this game, right, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely not. There's just it's a thing. We've said it before. Don't fall into the trap. You should win this game. Doesn't mean you will win this game. But yeah, this is certainly one you have to think the Broncos are favored for a reason. So yeah, I don't think we've got anything left to say about how great the Broncos are, how great we are.
No.
Yeah, I think we've covered just about all of it.
With a what?
With a what? With a go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Orange Weekly. Fans, brews, and Broncos news.